science crew. I'm excited for us to be doing our first experiment today, and what we're going to be working on is we are going to be making tinfoil boats today, okay? So first I'm going to go over the supplies that we're going to be using. I'm going to talk about what size foil and the logistics of the project. I'm going to talk a little bit about the science behind it so that you know what forces are actually being used in this experiment, and then we're actually going to get ahead and we are going to test out two different scenarios. So we're going to have two trials here. I'm going to create a smaller, just regular boat, and then hopefully I can use my predictions and my drawings to make a better second boat, okay? So come on over. We're going to look at the supplies that we're going to be using today. I've included a tinfoil boat prediction sheet for you. So I will attach that for you. This is for trial one. What we're going to do is you guys are going to be able to use a handy dandy pen or marker or whatever you want to use. You are going to draw out what you think is the best design for your tinfoil boat. So clearly, maybe creating a sailboat like this is not possible, so we may have to go pretty simple with our building. But this is so you can kind of think about it for a minute and then use that time and think, I wonder how big my walls should be, or should they be really short, or should I make my boat really small, should I make it really big? So that's why we have this sheet so you guys can think about it, okay? We also have here predictions and results. So if you were ever in science class, you know that predictions are what we use to guess if we think something is going to work or not, okay? So it's an educated guess. And so I have a smiley face here if I think it's going to work, and I have a sad face here if I don't think it's going to work, okay? And just because we're going to be doing this 2 times, it's okay to think, you know what, it might not work the first time, but then the second time we'll use what we learned in the first experience to better our boat moving forward. And then after that, we want to make sure that we write down our results so that we know for the future. And so if any of our friends come over down the road, or we want to film ourselves doing a science project, we can let them know how our different trials went. So we have our template here. We also have the pen that we're going to be working with. I've also laid out some scissors here, a ruler, and so these can be used to help you cut the foil here, just in case using the edge of the serrated box here is a little too dangerous. And so definitely use safety measures for that, and ask a grown-up if you can have some help with that, okay? And then normally in this experiment I would be using pennies, but I am saving all my pennies during this quarantine, and so instead I'm going to be using marbles. So I have a whole bin of marbles here, okay, which are really cool. I actually snuck them from Mel in the art room. So I'm gonna use them for this experiment. You guys are free to use if you wanna, if you have a big collection of pennies that you can use. If you want to use marbles, you can go ahead and do that. You want to use the same material for each experiment. So if you're going to use pennies, make sure that you use pennies for trial 1 and trial 2. We don't want to switch up to maybe quarters for trial 2, because then that wouldn't really allow us to know if it worked better or not, because quarters are actually heavier than pennies, okay? So moving on over here, this is where all the action is gonna take place. I have just filled a simple bin here full of water. You can see that. And you guys can feel free to use a bin at home. If you have a bowl or maybe like one of the great totes if you want to fill that with water, but definitely you guys can feel free to use your kitchen sink or even the bathtub to do this experiment, okay? So think about what you have around the house and utilize it that way. I don't have a bathtub here at ABC, so I'm using this tote, okay? All right, so I think we are ready to get started. I'm gonna take a seat here and we are gonna start on drawing what we think we're gonna use for our boat design for trial 1. So come on over. clearly I put my name at the top so everybody knows it's mine. I don't want to get it mixed up with anybody else. But what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using tin foil. So tin foil, if you don't know, is just this material that we usually use to cover pans in the kitchen, or maybe you cover your leftovers with, okay? So I have some pre-cut out sizes here, just for an example. And so what this experiment is gonna be is I'm only allowed to use this amount of tin foil, okay? I've measured it out for myself, and I will include that in the materials listed. But I need to be creative in how I'm gonna do it, okay? Because I don't have tape here, and so I have to try to keep the corners together, okay? So that's something that I have to think about so that the water doesn't kind of trickle in through the corners. Quarters, oh man. Okay, so what I think for my simple design is gonna be, I think I'm just gonna do a simple flat boat. And so I'm thinking potentially, this is not the best drawing skills, I know that. I'm just gonna create a little square here, and I'm gonna create some sort of walls, because what I'm thinking is if once this goes inside the water completely flat and the marbles go on top of it, I feel like the water is gonna trickle in, okay? So I think it needs some walls to protect itself. So what I'm thinking here is we can actually fold some walls in, so it kind of builds like a little dam for us. Build wall here. So I'm gonna build a wall on each side, okay? So this is gonna be my simple boat. I'm gonna make it pretty small on the inside because again, this is the amount of foil that I have here. I'm not gonna have a sail or anything because it's not necessary. We're not traveling anywhere. So I just wanna use as much space as I can to leave enough space for the marbles here to sit in, okay? So I think this is okay for my simple design. I feel okay with it. My prediction now though. So my prediction, and this is what my educated guess is, do I think it is going to work really well, or do I think that maybe I need to rethink my strategy here? So that's why I want to think about it for a second. I'm nervous because I don't quite know how tall to make my walls. And so I'm thinking that maybe in trial one, maybe it won't work very well, but then I can use that and help me build my boat for the second one. So I think for this one, I'm gonna say it's not gonna work very well. And that doesn't mean that it's not gonna hold any marbles. It's just maybe I think it's gonna hold less than 20 marbles, okay? So I'm gonna put less than 20. Okay, and now I'm gonna leave the results section blank because I fill that in once the experiment is over, all right? So I'm gonna put this aside just so I have some nice working space, but I also wanna remember to take a peek at my design here so that I stay with that. I have a piece of foil here, and what I'm gonna do is just like my picture shows, is I'm gonna create some walls, okay? So I'm wondering if I should just have a single layer of walls here, folding it in like this so it's kind of overlapping. That's what I'm thinking is gonna work best for this. It kind of feels like I'm wrapping a present for somebody. You know, when you wrap presents for the holidays or for birthdays. So I'm gonna use that kind of same technique and fold my edges there to build this boat. Now this one is a little tricky, so I'm gonna have to fold it down to make sure that I cover it, push it together so that no water can seep in there, okay? So I'm feeling pretty good about this design so far. This is definitely my first time doing it, so I can perfect my skills moving forward. So this is what I have, guys. I think this is what I'm gonna use for my trial one here, okay? So I'm gonna bring this on over to our water bin here. and I'm gonna put it on the water. So I have a few notes here because I wanted to make sure to talk about what forces are being used behind this experiment, okay? So there's two primary forces being used, and one of them is called gravity, okay? So I think we all know what gravity is, meaning if we jump up, whoop, it immediately is pulling us down, okay? So if we see somebody who's up in space and they're kind of floating around, it's because they don't have gravity up there. But down here on Earth, we do have gravity. And that means that force is pulling us down and trying to keep us staying on the ground, okay? Now the other force that we're gonna be using is called buoyancy. And you may not have heard this word very often. Usually you hear it when they talk about boats or even rubber duckies. They talk about them being buoyant, okay? Now this is a prime example for when you put things in the water and they float. So this is like if you say you were gonna put a rubber ducky, or actually even my boat in here, I can place it on top. You know, it's not immediately pulled down to the very bottom because gravity is actually working against the force of buoyancy. Can you guys see this? So if I was pushing it down a little bit more, that's when it gets a little bit harder, and that's when the forces are actually going against each other. But right now, since there's nothing inside the boat, it is actually working pretty well so that gravity is there and buoyancy is there, and so we don't have any issues, okay? So now that we kind of went over the two forces that we're gonna be working with today, we are gonna just put our boat back in the water here. I'm gonna move over my marbles, and I'm gonna roll up my sleeves just in case. I don't know. This may be a splash zone, so we'll have to see, okay? So I wanna count out my marbles, and I was hoping you guys could count with me, okay? So I'm just gonna grab a handful, and then I'll put these aside so that we use the same exact marbles for the second trial. All right, here we go. So what I'm thinking is if I put my marbles right in the middle, maybe that will hold our boat a little bit better. So that's what I'm gonna plan to do, okay? I think it's always safest when I'm on a boat sitting in the very middle because I'm not on the edge. So I'm gonna grab a few more marbles. I'm wondering, oh, it's moving. Is there a breeze in here? Okay, I'm gonna keep adding them to the middle here. Now I see my boat is kind of moving down a little bit. You see the water is rising a little bit up on the walls. Okay, so it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 so far. I said we were gonna count, so we gotta keep counting now. Here's number 10, 11, 12. Ooh, that made a shift in the boat. All right, I'm gonna put some on top. 13, 14, 15. It's moving, it's moving. Oh no, there's water coming in. 16, 17. I see water trickling in here. That makes me nervous. 18, 19, 20. So I'm gonna say when it goes completely down, that's when I'm gonna call it good, okay? Because even though there's water trickling in, it's not completely over yet, okay? So we're at 20 marbles right now. 21, 22, 23. All right, let's see, 24, 25. It's really tipping towards one side. 26, oh no! 26 marbles, can you believe that? Well, that actually was more than what I guessed in my prediction here. My prediction on my sheet here was less than 20 marbles, and it actually survived. It actually stayed on for 26 marbles, okay? So I'm gonna write that down on my sheet just so I can remember. How many items did your boat hold? 26. So I'm gonna put it right there, okay? Perfect. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna gently pull those marbles out. I'm gonna get a paper towel real quick. So I do have to run off camera real super fast. And this is because I wanna make sure that I have a nice dry space for the marbles that I'm pulling up, okay? So here we go. Got most of them in my boat here. That's a pretty good boat. I should have thought of a name for my boat. Maybe Boaty McBoat Boat. What do you guys think? Okay. I'm gonna dump those out because I want to try to give them a nice dry with a paper towel. Just because I know adding water on top of it, water actually adds a little bit of weight to it. And so we want to make sure that the weight is the same for trial 2. Okay. Now this is our sunken ship here, guys. So what we're gonna use is we're gonna have to take what we learned from boat 1, and we are gonna have to use that and figure out, what can we do to fix it to be better for trial 2, okay? So I'm gonna come back over here. I'm gonna turn over my prediction sheet. I'm gonna use this sunken ship as a little bit of a guide, okay? So my simple boat had pretty thin walls. They were only 1 layer of foil, so I'm wondering if I double layer the walls. I'm also thinking maybe if my walls were taller. What should I say? Make taller. And then I'm also thinking, did you guys notice anything in here, the way that I was putting the marbles in? So I was in trial 1, I was only putting the marbles in the very middle of it just because I thought that was the safest place for the marbles. But I'm thinking maybe I should scatter my marbles. Okay, so I'm gonna create my boat again. I'm gonna create a square similar to my first one. Again, my drawing skills are not amazing. Don't tell Mel or Mike. They would be testing me on this. So on the other side, my walls were pretty small. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna increase that size, make them a little deeper. For deeper walls. And then I'm gonna also double layer. Okay, so this is kind of my idea here. We can double layer it. I have the same amount of foil, and so I'm gonna use the suggestions that I wrote on here. Double layer the walls. I'm going to make the walls taller, and I'm gonna scatter the marbles this time, okay? Because I don't know necessarily if the marbles, putting them directly in the middle, if that helped or not. So I know we will be changing a lot of things for this next trial, but I think it's okay because this is just a fun experiment that we're doing in science class, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna fold in my walls so that they are double layered. Turn this around. They're a little bit taller here. My boat is sneezing. Did you guys hear that? So silly. I'm gonna use the same technique of kind of folding a present. And this boat is significantly smaller because I made the walls taller. So that may be a good thing or a not so good thing. There we go. Fold it down a little bit. Down a little bit. Okay. So my walls are taller. I also double layered the walls here, so there's 2 layers of foil on each side. And when I put my marbles in, I'm gonna scatter them instead of just dropping in the middle, okay? So this one is significantly smaller than the first one, but I'm gonna see if that makes a difference. Okay, so we're gonna bring it back over here to our water and see if it floats. There we go, gravity and buoyancy working together again. Looks like they're pretty equal right now. I'm gonna use the same marbles I used for the first time, just so that I know that it's gonna be relatively the same weight. And I'm trying to wipe off the marbles as much as possible, okay? So we're gonna get started with trial 2. Last time was 26 marbles. Do you think that we can beat it? We'll have to see. Okay, so this is marble 1. I'm gonna put it in the corner. Whew, that was drastic. The one in this corner. Oh man, that might not be a good idea. Let's see, I might put some over here. So whenever I see that the boat is kind of leaning down towards the water, I may try to strategically, no, don't sink. Don't sink. Where are we? Oh my goodness, that was terrible. Oh my gosh, I thought trial 2 was gonna be a lot better. So you can see here, these are all the leftover marbles that actually fit in boat 1. So we're gonna pull this sunken ship up so we can see how many marbles actually fit in this little ship. Oh, one got away. All right, let's count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You know what that means, guys? It's literally half the amount of marbles that went in our first trial, maybe because it was bigger, maybe because the walls, we didn't use as much wall space on this one. I don't know what it means, guys, but I'm gonna put down my results just so that I can remember, and then maybe I can talk about it with the other people in this group. Maybe I can talk about why I think it is better. So I thought for sure it was gonna be better, but was it? 13 with the sad face, because that is half the amount the original one made. Wow, I am stunned. Well, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me here in my little lab. I'm gonna clean up my mess that I created because I don't wanna leave this water everywhere. Definitely make sure that you throw away your materials, that you make sure that you have some towels handy so that you're not spilling water all over the place. And good luck with your testing today. See you next time.